Hey Refam, my name's Kate and welcome back to My Surgeon Says, a podcast with real surgeons, real experiences and real advice. Before they come to see us, so many of our patients undergo huge transformations, losing massive amounts of weight. It's common for both Richard and Kim to see people who have lost 50, 60, even 100 kilos every single week. But what happens after you lose the weight? Today, we're chatting about what to expect once you're on the other side of a massive weight loss journey. The surgeons reveal whether the method of weight loss impacts the type of surgery you'll need, how Medicare defines weight stability, and what happens if you gain weight again after you've gone under the knife. As always, please rate and review wherever you're listening, and we have a little recommendations corner at the beginning, so if you want to skip to the real stuff, just jump ahead a couple of minutes. The My Surgeon Says recommendation corner.
Oh, wow. We're on to this again.
All right. Richard, do you want to kick us off? You do this one?
Ooh, okay. I'm going to go with dinner parties.
Ooh, nice.
Ooh.
All right, bit of a throwback. I remember my parents used to do dinner
I
parties.
love a dinner party.
I'll tell you what I like. I'm not a great cook. I'm very, very ordinary. I'm pretty handy on a barbecue.
I was gonna say.
I just love the concept of having friends over to your house. Fortunately, Lisa's pretty good with everything other than whatever goes on the barbecue. But using the smoker barbecue or regular barbecue and just having your own music, and you can make cocktails and you open any wine you want. You don't have to be in at 6 and out at 8.
Yeah.
Like I'm out by 10, definitely. I think it's just really nice. And that's as a totally hopeless cook.
Yeah.
But people still will eat
You're like,
my
I love
food.
the dinner party. I outsource all the work.
you
That's
have
why I
someone-
love it.
No.
So much to do with it.
I'll
You'd be
cook
the
the
drinks
protein.
guy.
I'll do the protein. So
The music and the drinks guy.
I'm steaks. If you have a steak from me, it'll be cooked very, very well.
Medium
it'll
rare.
be medium rare, please.
Great one.
Awesome. I'm going to say audiobooks. Somehow I am very bad at listening to podcasts, and I really want to get into. I know. Sorry. So I just finished listening to an epic, the Strike detective series. So that's written by J.K. Rowling under her pseudonym,
JK.
which I can't remember what it is, but it's Strike, and there's maybe 6 or 7 of them.
Wow.
There's one of them, do not listen to audiobook. I was advised that, and I read it in the actual book because a lot of it's like internet chat rooms, and there's like 4 columns even in the book. My friend listened to it, and she was like, "This is the most painful thing you've ever listened to." But the last one I just listened to is 31 hours long.
Oh my
It's like,
God.
so you could imagine reading it. Like that would take me a year to read because I'm a
It's
very
like
slow
Stephen
reader.
King, It is also like 40 hours.
Really? I feel like I read the book. I'm sure it wouldn't have. I don't think I need to watch the movie of that or read the book or listen to it. But yeah, happy to be advised of any good audio books.
Leave recommendations below. I did think of one while you were talking. And it
As if.
was
This is the trendsetter.
Oh, okay.
Here we go.
Like a mixture.
Everyone get your pens
No,
out.
it's a mixture of you two. My book club. Which
That is a mixture.
dinner party and books.
because it's a potluck.
Wow,
All of us are
brilliant.
phenomenal cooks, which I just think is the best bit. Like, and everyone, like Andy will cure a salmon. Somebody's
I need
got
to
like
be invited.
What's wrong
to
with
your
the
book
salmon?
club.
oh
my goodness.
all the food's always so good, but I genuinely, people are always like, oh, you just use it as an excuse to drink wine. But no,
Yes.
like we're doing
Eat
like
food.
university English level dissections of the book.
Wow.
Like,
Really?
and I love it because I loved that at uni. I loved
I hated
over
that.
dissecting
I
a book.
hated that the
Ugh,
most.
and that's what you're doing. I'm doing what I'm doing. Like I love it. And so it's so good to just get, and because normally your friends aren't reading the same books as you, so you can't get their kind of feedback. And so it's so good getting to do that and really expand your brains for a bit. And then do a dinner party.
Pass on the book recommendations. That
Yeah.
good ones.
Yeah, that's rare. But that's what's good about a book club. Bad books are just as good.
Yeah,
So like
'cause it-
if you were just doing
more-
it by yourself,
more
you're like, what
conversation.
a waste of my time.
Yeah.
Whereas when it's a book you hate, never are we all on the same
shredding
side.
this next
It's
time.
like
Oh, wow,
some people
half
love
will
it.
love, half will hate.
Really?
And so it's fantastic. I recommend. All right. Natural segue into patient population.
We're going to talk about.
A significant part of our patient population is people who have lost weight. So that might be through diet and exercise, they might be postpartum, might be weight loss injections, might be bariatric surgery. I think a lot of the time losing weight has all these positive connotations and people are getting really good feedback from people around them and telling them how great they look and all of this. And I think that a lot of people may be taken by surprise that weight loss can be the first step in what can then end up being quite an involved process. So in this episode, I just want to chat about how people can prepare themselves so that they're mentally and physically set up for success after massive weight loss. In your experience, why do you think some patients are unprepared or not expecting the surgeries that may come after massive weight loss? And do you think that's linked to their method of weight loss?
I just don't think it's on people's radar. I think people think as they lose their weight and they shrink, the skin would shrink as well. I just don't think it's a logical progression that you're just going to end up with loose skin. As to the method of weight loss, the amount of weight loss impacts way more than the method or even how quickly you lose the weight. So some people say, oh, I've lost it very slowly. So I don't care. It's like, it doesn't matter. And whether people have lost it from the GLP-1 agonists or whether they've lost it through bariatric or whether they've lost it through diet and exercise, it doesn't matter. If someone's lost 70 kilos and half their body weight, they're going to have loose skin. You'd be very, very lucky genetically to lose that degree of weight and not end up with loose skin. And by the same token, if you lose 5 or 10 kilos, you're unlikely to get loose skin.
If they went through bariatric surgery, do you think bariatric surgeons are giving them the information or they're just kind of like, I'm doing this and I'm not going to talk about it anymore?
I've often thought about that and I doubt it very much. I think it would be a deterrent for their procedure.
Like 10 years ago, some of the bariatric surgeons, they were saying they could do, and they would generally be doing like a pretty bodgy abdominoplasty and just really getting that front apron off the patients. And then they were usually not happy and would still end up coming to see us. Because sometimes the surgeons are like, well, it would be a win if you got to 80 and then they get to 55 or something. So the skin's going to be way more damaged. I think the other thing as well that impacts patients is amount of up and down that they've done before their significant weight loss as well, because the skin has just been so stretched and up and down and up and down.
I think that further to what I said earlier, where people are getting a lot of feedback and people are saying really nice things about them losing the weight, I think that's also a very harsh juxtaposition with then when people opt for plastic surgery for the excess skin, which can be seen as vain, or like people just tell them to go to the gym. So they're getting all this kind of positive feedback on the weight loss journey and then suddenly it shifts. Could you talk about how excess skin impacts somebody's quality of life?
Massively. A lot of these patients are wearing like very heavy compression garments, tucking in their skin into leggings, corsets, shapewear. I had a patient today who she can't buy tops that fit her body because her arms are so big. She's still got so much loose skin. Like she's really slim and she's at a very, very healthy weight range. But most long sleeve tops she can't get to fit her because the sleeves are too tight on her arms. And so things like that, and skin hygiene for all areas where there's excess skin, where there's an overhang and fold, like rashes, fungal infections, trying to keep that clean and dry and not smelling and sweaty when they are exercising. And I've seen it on social media and stuff as well, where people comment to me like, you absolutely don't need surgery, just go to the gym more. You just cannot gym excess skin away.
Did the gym, that's why they're here.
Yeah, exactly. And even if they didn't do the gym, like building muscle will fill out a little bit, but it's not going to make skin tight.
And then adding to that list, intimacy is a big issue for patients after they've lost a lot of weight. Even going to the toilet can be a big issue because everything's so droopy. And a common one patients say to me is the sound.
Oh, yeah.
So when they're running, the sound of the skin slapping on their thigh or wherever, they feel very self-conscious of that if they're running, and other people can hear if they're at gym and things like that. So
And it'd be so uncomfortable.
it'd be extraordinarily
And in
uncomfortable.
the heat, you're wearing excess amounts of clothing to try and stop that. People avoid going to the gym or exercising in public for those kind of reasons.
We encourage patients to be at a stable weight before any kind of body contouring surgery. Why is it so important that they are at a stable weight, and how long should they be at that weight before even considering surgery?
Okay, so there's no reason surgically that they need to be at a stable weight. So it doesn't make any difference to what we do. It's just more that if you were to gain weight after a procedure, you potentially go backwards and you stretch the skin up again, and then if you lose the weight again, then you need to have the surgery again. So the rationale for being stable is that you're not going to put the weight back on, but it wouldn't change the surgery that you're doing. How long is, well, it depends a little bit on the method that they've lost their weight, and I suppose how long it's taken them to lose their weight, and if they've got a history of yo-yo dieting and things like that. If someone's had a gastric bypass, it's going to be hard to put the weight back on. So it doesn't matter so much. If someone's on a GLP-1 agonist and they're staying on it, again, it's like, it doesn't matter so much because they're staying on it, so they're going to keep the weight off. If someone had a history of yo-yo dieting and putting the weight on, losing the weight, putting the weight back on, losing the weight, you'd want them to be stable for a significant period of time.
Even the weight loss injections, though, because they're realistically not going to be on that forever. Unless, like,
well, some of the recommendations are.
I think
yeah, well,
will.
because once they come off it, they gain the weight back. So it's like if they're not planning on spending $5,000 a year for the rest of time, then that is somebody that needs to be at like a stable weight, because all of the data shows they're going to gain the weight back.
But that's the rationale. The rationale is so that you're not going to put the weight back on. If you keep the weight off, it's so subjective, and it's not a hard and fast rule, because just because you keep the weight off for 6 months doesn't mean you're going to keep it off forever either. There's no set period of time where, you've had the weight off for a year, now you'll never put the weight back on.
Yeah, for sure.
But also stable in terms of they're not still losing, because sometimes we see people
That's the other thing.
that are still losing, even though it's very slow. They're like, I'm still losing some. It's like, well, don't have your surgery until you're not losing anymore, because again, like, you make the skin tight, and if they lose more, depending how much, because a couple of kilos, it's not going to make a big
What's
difference.
your number?
Well, that I don't have a number, but Medicare does. So the item number says 6 months.
No. What's your weight fluctuation? You don't think it's going to make a huge impact on the result?
I don't probably 5 kilos.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But there's some patients that I've seen that have had a pregnancy or something, and their abdominoplasty results are still excellent. Or there was a patient that I did a abdominoplasty on, and I think she lost, and she was quite small anyway. Otherwise I wouldn't operate on it. But she got really ripped and was like training a lot at the gym, and I think she lost more than 10, maybe even 15 kilos, and she still maintained her results. And she was lucky, I think. But she was younger and she had pretty good quality skin. But it is a bit unpredictable.
On that, how does weight loss impact your skin quality, and is it the same across every demographic?
No, well, it's definitely not the same, and it's not the same on the same patient, because some people come in and they're like, I've lost 50 kilos, but my arms are totally fine, and my legs are not too bad, but my stomach's horrific. And so you cannot predict sometimes. And some people got clothes on, when we see them, we can see their face, and they're like, I've lost X amount of weight, and my concerns are these parts of their body. And then you take off their clothes, you really don't. You don't know what you're going to see. Sometimes there's just skin absolutely everywhere.
Yeah. I'm like, no, but like people,
the range.
Yeah, you would have no idea just looking at them with clothes on.
No, exactly.
And then you just see in the notes how much weight they've lost, and you're like, oh, I can't believe she's lost that much weight. And then you see like all the skin, you're like, whoa, I can't believe that was hiding in there.
Yeah, and people that are in that situation do get very good at disguising it, because it may have been a very, very long journey. Inherently, everyone's got a different quality skin. So younger patients that probably haven't had massive fluctuations, haven't had pregnancies, tend to have a bit better quality skin. Older patients, they lose their elasticity and their quality of the collagen. If someone's got a ton of stretch marks anywhere, then they've really got very, very damaged skin already, and no matter how tight we can pull that, it's always going to relax a bit more than someone that's got minimal stretch marks.
I think something that's interesting is when you'll see patients and maybe they've had pregnancy or maybe they've just lost weight and they don't have heaps of like this cascading excess skin. They're like across their stomach, they'll have like a rippling, and it isn't impacting in that same way. Like it's not so loud you hear it at the gym. It's not like a massive weight loss thing, but still the only way for them maybe to feel comfortable or confident again, or like they want to get rid of it, is still by having a full abdominoplasty. Can you talk about how did those people come in and be like, oh, I just need something tiny because it is such a little tiny issue, and do they think that there is like a mini fix for it?
I think the patient you're describing is a very small cohort. I think most people having this surgery, there's generally significant skin or significant muscle separation. I have had someone recently who really just had, and against everything that we've ever said, I did a mini tummy tuck. What I define as a mini tummy tuck, where I actually just cut out like a little wedge of skin, didn't move the belly button, didn't tighten the muscle, and like she was the perfect candidate for it. But what you're describing is just a unicorn. Like,
I just did one of your top 5 25 videos today. You would be unsurprised if she never got surgery, right? Like, but
on her tummy, or
and you know it's from pregnancy, and it's just such a little bit of rippling that you're like, oh, but I see it with your patients a lot.
No, okay, but I think those patients still. I know the patient you're talking about, but I think there's still a muscle separation, and so by the time you've tighten the muscle, the skin's not as distended, so it's a bit deceptive that there's not much skin because it's like a balloon, and you've blown out the balloon, so that seems tight. So her skin doesn't seem tight, but once you've deflated the balloon or tightened the muscle, there's more loose skin.
And sometimes they'll be coming in for a breast reduction or a breast augmentation, and they'll be like, look, I don't love my stomach, but can you have a look? Is there something that's a bit less than a full abdominoplasty that I could have that might help? And most of the time you see them and you're like, no. And then they're weighing up that, look, the breasts bother me more, the tummy doesn't bother me so much, I'll think about it. And those ones where it's if while you're there, if it's something easy, they sometimes, but usually it's pretty unlikely. Yeah.
But the technical answer to your question is why do you need the long scar, even though it looks like a small amount? Because if in the middle, if there's a lot of skin, the 2 incision lines need to be about the same length. And so if you made a short lower scar, and we're trying to keep that scar low, and then the upper scar is much longer, that's when you start ending up with dog ears or bulges on the end. So then you've got to match that lower scar to the upper scar. And that's why it becomes a longer scar, even though it seems like not so much skin.
Why is body contouring procedures after massive weight loss rarely a one and done procedure?
If we can cut out as much as we can in the first procedure, but the skin then relaxes, particularly in women, the mons, like that can drop down a little bit. So they're more likely to potentially need revisionary procedures. But also, if you're meaning one and done, one operation to deal with many areas, you just can't operate on all of their concerns in one procedure. So for a massive weight loss patient, we'll ask them what their areas of concern are, and usually the priorities as well. And so for people, sometimes they come in and they're like abdomen, bum, thighs, knees, arms, face, eyelids, breasts and back. And so we would then try and combine procedures that work together and not against each other. But sometimes with that list would be that's 3 surgeries easily, and sometimes maybe even more, because there's just only so much that you can achieve in one go.
I know, I do think it, like we've had patients who've lost 100 kilos and then they've come and it's just had everything but the kitchen sink, and it's like, God, I can see that must just feel so daunting after you've already done all of the bariatric surgery. In that, like when they've lost 100 kilos, that is typically the case. And then it's like a year, and then it's 2 years of surgery after that.
And it's a massive journey, and that's why when we were talking before about choosing a surgeon, you really have to gel with that person and for them to gel with us, because it's going to be a long journey, like sometimes several years between when they're choosing to do their surgeries. And so they are going to have to want to come back to see you and to deal with your staff and the nurse that we have.
And now we're adding face into it as well, because I'm now seeing patients who I've done body contouring procedures on, and now they're inquiring about facial procedures because the skin there has also been stretched. So, yeah, it is a long journey.
This is a bit of a tough question, and we alluded to it earlier.
Love tough questions.
Well, just tough because I don't know how you really know, but How common is it for patients to come back that have gained weight after they've had a body contouring surgery or lost weight and need to come back and chat because they've gone through that yo-yo process again?
They've gained weight and then lost it again?
Yeah.
I've currently got a patient like that. Absolutely one of our favourite patients. They have a very interesting story as to how they lost weight and their motivation for losing weight. But I did operate on them many years ago, hadn't got to like an ideal weight, but a good enough weight to have surgery. Then gained weight again and then has lost more weight than when I first operated on them.
Wow.
I'm basically redoing all
Starting
of
from
the
scratch.
procedures that I'd previously done.
Wow.
In those situations, you're fairly pessimistic about what kind of outcome you're going to have because there's already scarring and a whole lot of stuff. But I've got to say it's gone extraordinarily well.
Yeah, because when I was like, it's a tough question, I was like, I guess you don't know how many have gained weight because they wouldn't come back.
And they haven't come back.
Yeah.
Yes, they haven't.
Correct. It's not super common.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen. I know of one patient because I treated her and then I treated her husband, and she was due to come back to see me for something else, and he was like, she's put on weight, so she's not coming to see you until she's lost weight. And that was many, many years ago, and I know I haven't seen her since.
How should patients think about revisions in terms of their long-term plan?
In terms of our policy and how we look at it, we see patients until generally 3 months if everything's fine. And if there are any things of concern, raise them with us, and then we can have a discussion as to whether there's a way to improve it. And in approximately 100% of cases, if there is something that concerns you and there's a surgical solution, not only will we do it, we want to do it, right? That's the people we are and the surgeons we are and the practice that we have. But it doesn't mean that we're going to necessarily do an operation if we don't think it's in your best interests.
And then just in the medium to long term, these patients, but any patients, like your body is not going to stay exactly the same as what it was at 3 months after surgery. And so you are still going to age from that point. Things are still going to change. If your weight does fluctuate, then, you know, your outcomes are going to be changed. But if you've had a lower body lift and thighs and or arms, like those kind of procedures, and you stay stable for the rest of your life, like you're not going to need a revision.
I also think with massive weight loss patients, which is why having your surgeon show you before and afters on a body that looks like yours, you're going to need to think about like where you're starting from to where you're going. And if, like you said before, people have brought in photos of Kim Kardashian or whatever, and it's like, okay, well, if you're a massive weight loss patient, we might not be able to get to there, and that doesn't mean that there's going to be revision because, like you're saying, it's not surgically possible or probable or safe.
And you just can't keep cutting out every little loose bit of skin for ad infinitum, because there's going to be skin, and when you move it in different positions, there's going to be some loose skin, particularly the tummy. Like when you sit, there'll be a fold. When you stand up, it straightens out.
You need your skin to stretch.
Exactly.
To be able to move.
There's a perception that at the start of your surgical journey, you're at the T and you're teeing off, and then we do an operation and let's say we get you on the green, but they want to be in the hole and you're 1 centimetre away from the hole. And so they think it's like golf. It's like you've gone all this way from here, you're 1 centimetre, it's just a tap in. So it's just easy, so just do it. And like surgery just isn't like that. So it's maybe not like going back to the T. It might be that you're in the bunker, okay? And it's like it's actually that distance from here to here is actually usually pretty easy because it's like there's so much improvement that can be made. But to go from here to here, and it's often quoted plastic surgery truism that perfect is the enemy of good. People think it's all just going to get better, and it's just not necessarily going to get better. It might get worse. You might cause a problem that you didn't anticipate that then is worse for you than what the thing you're trying to fix. And then that might not be salvageable. So I think it's important to listen to us. We would never want to deny. We want everyone to be as happy as possible. We want everyone to think they've had the best result, the best experience they've ever had. And if we're saying don't have a revision,
or I can't fix
or
I
we can't fix
what you're
it's not because it's not from a
perceiving.
lack of skill or a lack of motivation or a lack of desire. we're talking in your best interest.
We've talked a lot about the physicality, but what about the mental side? Do you have any tips for patients who are starting this massive weight loss journey about how they can mentally and emotionally prepare for the surgery journey?
I think they need a community. They need people that are close to them, that are supportive of no matter what weight they're at. If they've had surgery, or even if they're on injectables or doing diet and exercise, I think having a psychologist at least, someone that can help support your mental well-being, is really important, and particularly for those more surgical things. And I think a lot of the bariatric surgeons do have a group that's with them. Outsource a lot of things, like having a dietitian. So most of us believe we know what we should be eating, but it's having someone that you're actually answerable to, that's giving you specific advice for you. And there's some diets that some things that are just not right for everybody. So have a community of support people. Talk to people that have been through that if you know anyone, particularly so the weight loss side of things. There's lots of forums, there's lots of groups, and then also the surgical side of that as well. So when we're seeing patients, we've been talking about stable. That is hopefully their weight, but their mental state is stable, which is so much a part of that weight loss journey. And a lot of these patients are, that their scale is telling them they should be super happy, and people kind of like, wow, you look amazing, you lost X amount of kilos, but they still feel absolutely terrible in their body, because they kind of like, well, my tummy looked better when I was fatter because I didn't have this loose skin. And so being able to help you and support you through that sort of side of things, when you feel like you should be feeling super happy, and they actually come with, by the time they see us, they're not uncommonly quite tearful, but they're like I hate how I look, sometimes even worse. I know I'm healthier, but it's, yeah. And so we have empathy and have a lot of patients that we've been through this journey with before, but we are not psychologists. And so, yeah, I really think that's an important part of it. Some GPs are very good at that, but some are kind of like, oh, who do you want to see? Just write a referral. And having really supportive people around you that are not minimizing how you feel and not judging you on wanting to have this body contouring type of surgery, that it helps support you through everything that you're going to go through.
If you liked that episode, there's plenty more where that came from. Maybe start with some of these, or head to our channel for your peek into the mysterious world of plastic surgery.